Welcome to all the participants to the webinar in Civil Engineering 2020, organized by Department of Civil Engineering, St. Joseph Engineering College, Mangaluru. Without much delay, I request Mr. Prashant Kurudekar, Assistant Professor, to welcome the gathering.
A very good morning to one and all. The COVID-19 pandemic and global lockdown represents an unprecedented challenge for skill development system. Lockdown is having an immediate impact on the education system, but it has provided an opportunity to the educational institutions to use technology to disseminate knowledge through distance education. In the short term, the challenge has been to change the technical and vocational education and training provisions rapidly from real life to digital, or in some cases blended to fill in the gaps and provide various platforms for knowledge delivery. Webinar is one such tool which is proved to be very effective in upgrading the skill and knowledge apart from curriculum, for which we are anxiously waiting at this moment. Today, we have with us an eminent personality, Mr. Nithish Bhat, AGM, Business Development, Total Environment Building System, Bengaluru, for the webinar series WICE 2020. Sir, we are happy with your kind gesture for accepting our invitation and making it possible to join us in this event. On behalf of entire SJC family, I extend a heartily welcome to you, sir. I wholeheartedly welcome our beloved HOD, principal, and management to this event. I extend a warm welcome to Ms. Pranamya, Assistant Professor and Convener of this webinar series. I welcome all my fellow faculty and staff members of SJC to this session. With great pleasure and respect, I welcome all the participants present here who are the main pillars for the great success of this session. Thank you one and all.
Thank you very much for a wonderful welcome. Can I begin with my conversation for the day?
Thank you, Prashant, sir. I request Dr. Edneshwaran B, HOD of Department of Civil Engineering, to introduce about the WICE 2020.
Present scenario shows that there were an exponential growth of digital learning. Webinars have become an indispensable tool in higher education and computer-mediated communication. So in this scenario, to utilize such advantages, Department of Civil Engineering has proposed to conduct a series of webinars titled Webinars in Civil Engineering, WICE 2020 for faculties, researchers, students, and people from the industry. Today we have a great personality, Mr. Nithish Bhat, to share his views to our participants. So without consuming much of my time, I once again welcome each one of you to this venture to make this program a success one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request Ms. Pranamya to introduce the speaker.
He is a gold medalist in civil engineering and has firmly believed in immersing himself in varied collegiate activities as it came, exposing himself to students' administration, events planning, technical research, etc. For the last 8 years since his graduation, he has worked for Total Environment, a design-based real estate development firm based in Bangalore. In his career in Total Environment, he has worked as an estimation engineer, construction personnel, project manager, as a strategy consultant with his brainchild called Business Artist Group for the chairman's office for 3 years. As a part of BAG team, which used to be called, he was closely working with the director of Total Environment Building System in business expansion, leadership management, and sales strategy development. Now he leads the sales for total environment under the president of organization. I have seen him grow from strength to strength in the organization, contributing in key roles throughout, inspiring all his fellow colleagues, irrespective of age and experience. For his outstanding contribution to the overall growth of the organization, he has got many awards and recognitions. The few honorable mentions are Young Achiever Award in 2013, You Made a Difference Award in the years 2014 and 15, and Significant Contributor Award in the year 2017 and 18. He has been shortlisted for the MBA program in prestigious Cambridge University currently. So I request Mr. Nithish Bhat to start his session and inspire our participants on various career paths for a civil engineer and how to build a holistic profile as a student for better careers. The platform is yours, Nitish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pranamya, and thank you to the entire staff and the HOD of Civil Engineering Department, Professor Yajneshwaran sir. This is an honor to be a part of this forum, and it's a heartfelt thank you from me to all of you over there who are here to listen to this talk by me. Thank you very much. Without much ado, I'll share my screen and I'll start my presentation. Is my screen visible? Is the presentation visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Once again, good morning to all of you present here, to the students who are viewing this talk, to the staff members of SJEC, to the HOD of the department, and all of you present here. I thank Pranamya for this opportunity, and I'm so glad that I got this opportunity to talk to the students today. So what should you be expecting from this talk? Consider me as a 30-year-old student, because learning is a continuous curve, and I don't think there is a stop to learning. So this is a talk by a student like you, but probably a little older than you. And I would want to look at this more as a conversation and less as a presentation. So I don't have a lot of slides. I don't have a lot of infographics. I'm going to talk. You are more than welcome to take down notes and ask questions. I'm going to have a few stories, a few ways to approach our careers. How should we build our profiles, not just to get hired, but to feel satisfied with our work? And yes, yesterday I did have conversation with a few of you out there, and I do understand that COVID-19 has created an impact in all our careers, all our education plans, and all our lives. So I want to tell you, yes, it's affected me as well, but that doesn't reduce my options. That doesn't stop me from dreaming, and that doesn't stop me from planning what I want to do in my life going forward. So I firmly believe in this fact that civil engineering is a universe in itself. The very fact that when civil engineering was designed as an engineering field, it was one of the core engineering principles. And it's called as a mother of engineering fields, primarily because there are a lot of fields, there are a lot of opportunities, and there are a lot of branches that span out of civil engineering. Unlike probably one of the newer engineering principles, such as IT or computer science, you have everything here, right from fluid dynamics to core structural designing, to environmental engineering, to sustainability, to archaeological conservation, everything under this roof called civil engineering. So it's a very vast expanse, and we all should feel very proud that we are associated with such a branch of engineering. So how do we usually see our career paths in civil engineering? We usually look at it as specific jobs, say designers, contractors, lecturers, estimators, procurement, valuators. We tend to sometimes separate ourselves from this profession. We tend to sometimes look at this as only a money-making job, and we don't enjoy it. We sometimes start hating our jobs, and we don't understand that what we are doing out of all of this is to create something much more meaningful and much more meaningful for the people who are living, who are using our facilities, and it gives us content at the end of the day. So we forget that sometimes. So what if we flip this entire thought of, the profession being just a job? What do you really like doing in life? What is your interest? Are you passionate about something? Hold on to that thought. Can this be a career path for you? Can your interest get converted into a career path where you actually end up doing what you really like and you earn your money doing something you really enjoy doing? For example, I'm very passionate about serving the society. So what did I do? I joined an NGO called Nivasa that was building infrastructure and homes for villages outside Bangalore. So this NGO Nivasa had both permanent and volunteering positions. I took up the volunteering position. I started working over the weekends in these villages. And, because I really enjoyed doing it, I took it forward. I started talking to the villagers. I started understanding what kind of homes they want. I started developing the infrastructure, the roads, the rainwater lines, the sewage lines. We built an auditorium. Uh, we built spaces for public gatherings. We built a small primary healthcare center. We started talking to the government officials to understand the policy, understand the approvals, understand funding. So what it led to is, my interest giving birth to a job role in a firm which I really enjoyed working. And it gave me an all-round experience of how a business works or how society works, because I just didn't do my own core estimation or structural designing work in this NGO. Started talking to people, I started talking to villagers, I started talking to government. So can we look at our careers as something like this? Say you like solving problems. Here is a problem statement. Reducing the time consumed in building masonry walls and increasing the quality of these masonry walls. Is it possible? Yes, one probable solution is automation. Can you build a robot to do this? Probably yes. The answer is yes. What would it take to build a robot to automate the entire process of building a masonry wall and continuously increasing the quality of these masonry walls? The alignment, the verticality, reduction in wastage, the joints being better. How can we do something like this? And what does it take? It takes a collaboration between a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer, an electronics engineer, an electrical engineer, and a computer science engineer to come together to devise this kind of a robot to actually make the work on site better. This is the reality outside colleges. So what happens once you come out of colleges is that you're going to work with people from varied walks of life. You're going to work with engineers, you're going to work with MBA graduates, you're going to work with specific skilled people skilled in electrical works, people skilled in laying the flooring, people skilled in concrete pouring. You will start dealing with people who are experienced in people management. You will start dealing with people who are experienced in architectural design. You will start dealing with people who are experienced in getting approvals. You will start dealing with people who are good in getting finance, getting funding, getting the money into the company. So can you now start thinking of your career in a different way where it is not just about a specific stream, rather it is an amalgamation of a lot of people coming together and working together? This is the fundamental difference between what happens in your college and what happens in your career. So what is happening in your college is very essential. That lays the foundation for you, that teaches you to build your knowledge skills, build your understanding of the subject, and build confidence in yourself that you have learned something and you can perform basis your education. But what is needed in your careers after your college is slightly different. For example, in your colleges, it is individual grading. But when it comes to your office work, it's always team deliveries. You're always rated basis your entire team's delivery. Your classroom currently is full of civil engineers. But when you actually work for a team in your company, it is going to be a team of professionals from very different backgrounds, like I just said. You're predominantly solving mathematical problems in your college. But when it actually comes to your career, you're going to solve real life problems. You're predominantly going to deal with people problems. What do we do in this kind of a situation? How do we give a better experience to our customer? How do we deliver our designs on time? So these are the kind of real life problems that you're solving. How do I build a home within a particular budget with the best quality, with the available material for a family of four who are in very much a need of a home? Real life problems is what you start facing over there. When there is a test, you know there is a test in your college. But when you come to work, every day you need to deliver your best. There is no question of test once in 6 months. When you know it's a test day and you can prepare well and come. More importantly, in colleges, what happens is, every day your professor teaches something new. You learn new problems, you solve new problems, and every semester you have new subjects. So there is something going on for you. But unfortunately, when it comes to careers, you need to learn to repeat your work over and over again. You need to have that patience, you need to have that practice to be able to work on the same problem over and over again until you master the problem. These are the fundamental differences between what happens in college and what happens in careers after college. And I want you to start thinking of your careers as these. So, thinking of those, let's move into a few career paths that are possible for all of you. Mind you, whatever I've listed down as probable career paths, civil engineering is such a vast subject, and such diverse possibilities are there in civil engineering that I may not be able to cover everything in the timeline that I have today with you. So, firstly, I would want to tap into the various industries that form part of civil engineering. So, there is residential, there is commercial, there is infrastructure, there is industrial, then there is consultancy, there is education, and there are a few more fields like that. So, when we look at residential, it's building homes basically, small scale, large scale, independent homes, apartment complexes. When you look at commercial, it is building malls, building office spaces, uh, building individual buildings which can house small offices, etc. Infrastructure includes most of the public works, including roads, dams, bridges, sewage lines, all of these. Industrial includes building large industrial parks, industrial facilities, manufacturing centers, storage centers for your large goods. Consultancy is nothing but everything to do with design consultancy, environmental engineering consultancy, pollution consultancy, uh, sustainability consultancy, traffic management. All of that is probably an industry over there. And education, of course, because civil engineering is a huge subject and a lot of us want to study civil engineering, so we have a lot of potential in the field of education as well. So these are probably the industries loosely related to civil engineering. Now, getting into specific career paths within civil engineering. So, when you look at construction as a field, then you have various possibilities, and not necessarily all of this fall into any kind of sequence. And you always have the potential to grow from this to larger roles, to leading the entire project, to being an entire regional head, so on and so forth. So, for example, in construction, you can get into site execution. You can be a project manager who is planning the timelines for the project, who is planning the material and the labor requirement for the project. You can be part of the quality assurance, who has all the tools and the kits to measure quality of a finished building. You can be into procurement and contracts, where you're planning the material purchases. You are into contracting, where you're basically tendering, you're identifying contractors who are experts in a field and then bringing those contractors on board. You can be part of surveys, where you're going to physical sites, surveying the plot of land, surveying individual sites, understanding topography, understanding whether we can build in that particular parcel of land or not. You can also be part of estimation and budgets, where you're estimating the quantities. You're planning a budget for your overall project. And these are various possibilities and various roles within construction. And mind you, these are not necessarily in one field. This could be in residential, this could be in commercial, this could be in industrial, this could be in government related works. But these are the kind of roles that you're looking at the end of the day, irrespective of what industry within civil engineering you are a part of. Design. Design as a field within civil engineering is a really vast field. So I have covered three major areas of design, probably structural design, where we are basically talking about building designs, bridge designs. We're talking about steel structures, RCC structures. We're talking about tunnels, so on and so forth. We could get deeper into marine structures. We could get deeper into foundation designs. So there are various ways in which you can get into design, and there are various firms that specialize in one or two of these aspects that I told you. So this is one aspect that you can get into. And primarily, when you are looking at getting into design, usually companies and the government both look at having a master's degree as well. So currently, if you're doing your bachelor's civil engineering, then probably an MTech or an MS might help you get into a better role in structural design. There is also environmental design. When I talk about environmental design, I think we covered some bit of it yesterday during the presentation as well, during the webinar series. Environmental design also includes things like pollution, things like water treatment, things like sustainability. How do we make the building more green? How do we make the building more sustainable? How do we ensure that the pollution due to the construction of a building is lesser? How do we choose better materials through environmental design? Then, of course, there is services design. So when you think of a building, there is architectural design, where you're basically looking at the functionality and flow of the space. There is structural design, where you look at the strength of the building and the longevity of the building. And there is services design, which deals with how does water move, how does electricity move, how does rainwater come down from the roof, etc. So these are probably three fundamental areas within design, but there are more design fields within these large buckets. And if you are focused on design through probably a master's, you can get into any of these fields as well. Alternative careers within the scope of civil engineering, there is planning and policies. If you like large scale design work, if you like large scale development, then you can get into areas like urban planning. You can get into areas like policies for rural development. One of my friends, he studied civil engineering with me, and today he is doing his PhD in policies for infrastructure, electricity, and water supply in rural areas of India. So you can get into policies as well. You can get into geology, where you're basically understanding the history of Earth. You understand the various layers of soil within the earth, and that probably leads to design, because we are going to construct something on that at the end of the day. You can get into archaeology and conservation. So a lot of our historical buildings today are in a dilapidated state, and we need to conserve these so that we can pass this history on to our future. So conservation, architectural conservation in itself is a very huge exercise, where we not only structurally conserve the buildings, but also we bring back the glory of entire sites to how they were earlier. For example, Hampi. There is a lot of conservation that's happening there to retain the structures, to ensure supports in proper ways so that the structures don't collapse. So these are ways as well. I spoke to you about sustainability. Sustainability as well is a huge and upcoming field within civil engineering, where people are really working to ensure that what we build is really sustainable and harms the environment lesser and lesser by the day. Then, of course, there is traffic design. So, traffic planning, urban movement planning, planning a mix of what kind of mobility is required in cities in itself is a very huge discipline under civil engineering. One of my friends, he did civil engineering with me, and today he is planning the entire traffic movement for the city of Texas in the USA. They plan the road widths, they plan the curbs, they plan what is the optimum speed required by a moving car, so that there is a signal free movement of traffic through and through. They also plan what kind of mix between private roads and public transport is required to ensure optimum movement of people within a city. So it's a very interesting topic, and we can get into depths in these kind of fields as well. Then there is materials. We can get into material research. We can get into nanotechnology. We can come up with newer and safer versions of concrete, for example, stronger materials than steel, better masonry structures, better finishes structures, more feasible, more environment friendly tap systems. So there are various alternative careers available within civil engineering apart from design and construction as shown here. There are furthermore options. For all you know, you are interested in research all throughout your life. You want to keep doing research, keep identifying newer technologies, newer materials, newer way of carrying work. Then there are large institutions across India and abroad, IITs, NITs, all universities in India. They always have research positions open where you can apply to professors, because professors always are doing some or the other kind of research, and you can work with the professor to then further take the research ahead. You can get into becoming a PhD scholar yourself, or you can get into education after research, where basically you are doing a master's and probably you're doing a PhD, and then you become a very famous professor of civil engineering. So that's possible as well. Or you can undertake public sector jobs. Yesterday, during my conversation with a few students, you were pointing out that you would want to understand what are the various public sector jobs that are possible. So I have differentiated between public sector and government service, because public sector jobs, I'm focusing on civil engineering jobs at the end of the day, and government service and international bodies, I'm focusing on non-civil engineering jobs in this bucket. So within the public sector jobs, either you can look at contracting. So all that you need to do is you need to understand that there are various bodies within the government, say public works department, PWD department, say electrical department, say sewerage department, say roads department, and go and apply yourself as a contractor within that department. It's a very simple process where they give you a list of things that you need to submit, and you need to show your credibility saying that I can carry this work. Once you show that, and once you fill the application and pay a small fee, they list you down as a contractor within their list. And next time when there is a work, you can tender for that work. If you get that work, then you carry out that work. That's a very simple process in which you can enlist yourself as a contractor and start taking on jobs from the public sector. More importantly, once you do a job for the government, you can say that now you've done something and you want to grow. So you basically move from a class C to a class B to a class A. So that's the way you progress as a contractor within the government bodies. Apart from being a contractor, there are very direct jobs within the government setup for civil engineers. Every town has a town planning authority. There are engineers who have to approve any buildings that need to be constructed within the town. So these are all positions open for civil engineers. We need to write the gate, and we need to keep ourselves updated on job openings within government websites. And then we need to apply at those points in time, sending our CV or resume and requesting for a meet with the department where the job openings are there. So as I told you, we have town planning authorities, we have engineers who approve any and every building that needs to come up in a city. Now, for example, in a city like Mangalore, say tomorrow you have a parcel of land and you want to build a commercial building. So once you've designed the building, you need to submit this design to the Mangalore Development Authority. The Development Authority has engineers at various levels who study your drawing, who study your design, and ascertain that yes, this is good to go. This is good to go in terms of safety, in terms of strength, in terms of usability, and the land that they are using to build this is the right kind of land, and then they approve the building plan. So that is done by nobody other than a civil engineer himself or herself. Similarly, we have roles in railways. We have roles in airports. We have civil engineering roles in various departments that I just told you about. The water supply department, electricity department, public works department. So these are all various departments where an engineer's role is very pivotal. Engineer's role is predominantly in maintenance, but also in approving a lot of private projects and in carrying out the government projects yourself. So these are various ways in which you can contribute within the public sector. I know we are running short of time, otherwise I would have elaborated a little more. When we now come to the government service, international bodies, and think tanks, of course, all of you know there is IAS, there is IPS, there is KAS. These are all definitive options for a civil engineer. Then there are international bodies like United Nations, World Health Organization. These as well have very local roles, very Indian roles available. If you just log into their website, you will find that there are job opportunities within them as well. For example, last week I was looking at the UN website, and it said that in the region of Mangalore, they need somebody to assist them in identifying women entrepreneurs. So they want United Nations wants to work closely with women entrepreneurs of Mangalore area. So they need somebody in their roles identifying women entrepreneurs, educating them about UN funding, and then assisting their business to grow. So these are the international bodies as well, where we can definitely seek jobs and we'll identify jobs. Then there are think tanks. For example, I'm not very sure about Karnataka, but at least in Maharashtra and Telangana, the chief minister has something called as chief minister's office. Within the chief minister's office, there are young, educated, just graduated students who work in their think tanks, helping them come up with new ideas for the state and the city, helping them devise, startup festivals, helping them devise new transport facilities within the cities, helping them do their research for their public talks that they go out and give. So these are very interesting think tanks under each of the chief ministers. Say Maharashtra, we have Telangana, we have Narendra Modi under, who also there is a think tank like this. Then we have the Delhi chief minister, who also has a student body who he uses to advise him in policies and things like that. So these are various other ways in which we can definitely contribute and definitely seek jobs. Then, of course, there is management where, if you are very interested in MBA, then post civil engineering, you can also look at doing an MBA and getting into managing businesses, managing people, managing finance. So these are roles that are available for us as well. Or you can gradually start as an engineer and then move upwards towards these kind of roles as well. And finally, obviously, and one of the most important areas is entrepreneurship in itself. If you feel you have an interesting idea, if you feel you want to solve a critical problem within civil engineering, then you should definitely be an entrepreneur. Young entrepreneurs are always more beneficial because the risks are lesser, the dependencies are lesser, and you have a larger time to be successful. So these are further alternative careers that you can look at. But this is not all. As I told you, civil engineering is a really vast subject, and there are newer and more uh, diverse ways of getting ourselves involved in the field of civil engineering. Say, what if you always wanted to be a computer science engineer, but by mistake you took up civil engineering? You can develop softwares for construction. You can build artificial intelligence driven tools for construction. This is not the end of it for you, where you sulk for the rest of your life saying, I became a civil engineer, but I always wanted to code. There are opportunities. One of my friends, who was a site engineer in total environment for about 5 years, did his master's, and currently he is working with a firm called Katera, funded heavily by Google, to develop the next big project management tool for the construction industry. He always wanted to get into coding, but he had a mind for construction. So he combined coding and construction, and today he's doing something really big for the project management industry. What if you always wanted to be a mechanical engineer? You can work on mechanical automation of construction. You can start building large construction equipment that is needed for construction on ground. What if you dreamt of being in the movie industry? How many of you have watched Game of Thrones? Do you like the sets in Game of Thrones? They're all designed and constructed by civil engineers. Set design is a very legitimate civil engineering job at the end of the day. You need to seek out these. If you like something, seek out a possibility or a probability. Google search on LinkedIn, go out, meet people, understand what they do, and I'm very sure you'll find a job that you really connect to. What if you like gaming? There are civil engineers and designers today working in the field of gaming, in computer science games, because they also need spatial planning, they need visualization, they need structural designing over there. So fortunately, we are in an era where change is the only constant. We can always work towards our interest, and we can always shift our careers more towards what we like doing, because fortunately, we are in this kind of an era. We are not in an era where if you start as a structural designer, you have to work as a structural designer for the next 30, 35 years and retire as a structural designer. Or if you start as an estimation engineer, you needn't work for the next 30 years as an estimation engineer. You can change, you can evolve, and you can go closer and closer to something that you really like doing. So, how do you get growth in your career? How do you change? I told you, yes, it's possible to change. How do you get growth in your career? Here is a visualization of my own career. So, uh, I'll take 2 minutes to tell you, how I started and what I'm doing right now. So, in my final year of civil engineering, I was part of the student administration. While I was really interested in applying for masters, I could not do that because I didn't have time to write my GRE and apply to masters abroad and things like that. So I waited. I waited for about 9 months in my final year for a job. And I knew Total Environment was coming, and I only wanted to join Total Environment as an alternative to masters because I really liked the designs of Total Environment, the quality of Total Environment, and it was something very unique that this organization was doing. But when they came, they only had one option, which was estimation engineer. It was not the best option for me at that point in time, but I thought, let me join the firm. They're doing some good work. It doesn't matter which position I join in. So I joined as an estimation engineer. It was not the most lucrative for me. So I was a little worried as to how I'm going to grow. Luckily for me, one of my bosses identified that I could do more than estimation, and I was interested in something apart from estimation. So within 8 or 9 months, he took me into project management. So I started managing one of the flagship projects for Total Environment sitting in my office. So I started planning the procurement, I started planning the timelines, I started planning coordination. So from there, my boss said, okay, now why don't you go to the site and manage it over there? So from being in office, remotely planning, I took in charge of the project. I went to the project and I started managing the project on ground, meeting vendors, meeting customers, coordinating between seniors in my organization. So looking at my work, looking at the amount of effort that I was putting and my hard work, the director of the organization pulled me in and told me, I want to start a strategy wing. I want to start a chairman's office called Business Artist Group. So he pulled me in. He said, Nitish, I want you to help me in business expansion. At that point in time, see, I'm a civil engineer, but at that point in time, my boss wanted to venture into tourism. My boss wanted to venture into music. My boss wanted to venture into hospitality and restaurants. And I got to work on it. I got to define the business plan. I got to define how the business should grow. And I also started working with the leaders of my organization and managing them, managing their goals, managing their deliveries. So, it was not planned. When I joined Total Environment, I joined Total Environment thinking I'll be there for a year. But if you put your hard work, if you are sincere, and if you're very authentic, then opportunities keep unfolding. If you express yourself, you get more and more opportunities, and you grow from smaller jobs to larger jobs where people start identifying your deliveries, and then they give you more and more and bigger roles. So once I went into business strategy, and once I started working with the director, after about 3.5 years, I told my director that I'm interested in sales because it allows me to meet customers. And by then, I exactly knew what my company was doing. So there was no better person than me to explain our work to probable customers. So that's how I took up sales role. When I performed in sales, I got an opportunity to lead an entire project. I took it up. And because I performed over there, in the same sincerity, with the same authenticity, and in the same amount of hard work, they said, now you're ready to take up a head position. So now I head closures for Total Environment. So I never thought in my life that I would come here. I never planned my career progress, but that is the benefit of being in this era. If you perform People appreciate you, people give you better roles and bigger roles, and there is no upper ceiling for where we can get from where we started. Mind you, when I started my career, I was not good in communication. Everybody told me I would not be good in something like sales because I have to go out and meet customers. But today I've done a sizable amount of sales for total environment to be recognized to head the entire position over there. This is an illustration that my wife did for me. She's an architect and now she's an illustrator. So you get it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're interested in something and if you've started working towards it, there are careers possible for you today. That is the era that we are in. This brings me to a very important question. How and when should we study further, and what are our opportunities to study further? These are some of the avenues for civil engineers to study further. We obviously have MTech, which is Masters in Technology in one of the Indian institutions. This is very much required if we are looking at very senior government positions as civil engineers. This is also key for a lot of us to get back into our own universities to be in teaching positions. We also have MS, which is the MTech version of international universities. So if you want to go and study abroad, then probably the same MTech will be called as MS. And there are varied fields. You needn't just do MS in structural design. You can once again imagine all the different subjects that you've gone through in the 4 years of civil engineering, and every single subject within it has a master's program available in one of the other universities, either in India or abroad. Of course, for the people who want to get into business administration, there is MBA. Then there are other possibilities. There is MA. Now, if you want to get into heritage conservation, if you want to get into architectural conservation, if you want to get a little more into architecture, or if you want to get into social work in NGOs where as a civil engineer you want to contribute, then you can take up MA, Master of Arts in either social sciences or humanities. There are fields like M Design. So these are international courses where you can do masters in industrial design, masters in product design, masters in material design. These are varied opportunities once again for you. Then there are certification courses. Say if you're really interested in finance, there is something called as CFA. Google it out. I don't want to talk more in detail right now. It's a self-study course, and once you're CFA certified, your salary packages and your opportunities in organizations are nowhere comparable to where we start as freshers. So that's the level and the respect that CFA gets. Then there is project management uh, certifications, where once you are a PMP certified person, then you automatically get into larger roles in construction sites. Then there are certifications such as company secretaryship. So every company needs a secretary who understands the legalities and the finance side of organization. So it's also a self-study course with a test at the end. You can definitely do that. And of course, there are a plethora of options for you to do your online skilling. It could be new softwares that you study. It could be same structural design courses that you take from universities abroad, just to understand how they teach it differently from your own curriculum. Or it could be online skilling in marketing. It could be online skilling in sales. There are a lot of options, and fortunately for us once again today, and especially given the current pandemic scenario, there is not much differentiation between online skilling and regular education anymore. Online has become as equivalent to classroom teaching today, that there is going to be equivalent respect for both kinds of education. So if you're somebody who has to immediately get into work mode after your bachelor's, you can in parallel continue doing online skilling so that you constantly keep building your profile over there as well. These are some of the options. Once again, we can get on detailed discussions one-on-one whenever you have time. But is this the right time to study? Given the current pandemic situation, is this the right time? See, whenever you think of doing masters, it's always the right time, because education in itself, without thinking of where I will be after education, is a very important thing to do in life. The more you want to study, there is nothing called as a right or a wrong time. If you are interested, please study. But having said that, what I have believed in and what I have practiced is that once you do your undergraduation, it's ideal for you to work for a couple of years so that you really understand what work is going to be. You really understand what you like and what you dislike. And probably you also understand a little more as to what field you want to do a master's in. I've seen a lot of my friends, a lot of my seniors, and a lot of my juniors who've done civil engineering and immediately they've done a master's. And after doing the masters, then they started working and they realized that what they did masters in is not something that they really enjoy. So then they did one more masters after that. Rather than doing 2 or 3 masters, it's ideal for you to work for some amount of time, understand your likes and dislikes, and then further continue your education. That's my philosophy behind masters. Specific to COVID situation, it's ideal for you to do masters right now because the job opportunities and the economic condition in the country is not that great. So if you continue to study, probably your profile and your skill level will be higher than others seeking job in the next 1.5 years. So it is a good time if you are considering masters. Do not worry about the COVID situation. It will only add more value to your profile if you do masters right now. Now, coming to the final topic, and I'm going to take not more than 5 minutes here. So, how do you build a holistic profile? How do you attract recruiters and interviewers and ensure that they hire you and not somebody else? So, before going to the profile as such, in a future which is full of robots, artificial intelligence, and automation, how can we humans add value? What is the difference that we humans bring to the table in a world that is going to be more and more automatic? Today, they say we don't even have to drive in the future. There are going to be cars that will automatically drive itself. There are going to be robots that is going to serve food to us in restaurants. So, in a more and more automatic world, what do you think is our value add? Number one, knowledge. Knowledge is something that is primary to humans. Even if robots have to gain the knowledge, they are going to be specific to a field, but it's very difficult for you to design and define. I think there is some disturbance. I'll continue. Can the person mute himself?
Just a minute.
Sure, no problem. Now it's fine. Can I continue now?
Yes, please.
Yes. So as I told you, knowledge is something that differentiates everybody else from humans. Going back. So what is the human value add in a scenario where it is going to be more automatic, more robotic, and more artificial intelligence? Firstly, it's knowledge, and more importantly, it's emotions. Emotions is something that differentiates every other living being or a non-living being from human beings. So emotions is going to play a very important role in a human value add in the future. That is something that you cannot expect a robot or an artificial intelligence to do for you. Fundamental factors that will really add value and that really needs to be projected in your curriculum vitae or your resume. Emotion is two aspects. One is emotional intelligence and the other one is emotional. So both of these factors are so today in the business world because people do not just want to understand how smart you are or how you can solve a problem. They also want to understand how you deal with other people. How do you manage team? How do you manage stress? Are you angry?
And being set up on her bed and decorated, she had confined to bed any longer. She called it the poet for the instituted him to have a house built on the tree top. Dutiful dad did the granny wish. With the poet's help, he built beautiful house for granny. Poet to her meals up the treetop
Just a
and
minute,
housed
Nitesha.
the
Sorry for
wonders
the
of time
inconvenience
living
caused.
in the treetop house. Dutiful dad did the granny wish. Dutiful dad did the granny wish. The poet's help, he built a beautiful house.
Mute all ಆಯ್ತು mute all ಆಯ್ತು.
Pranamya, I also lost control to share my screen.
Just a minute.
No problem.
Yes, now.
Yes, now I can do it. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible once again. So, knowledge and emotions are going to be two fundamental factors on which our profiles are going to be judged, and we are going to find jobs in the near future. Emotions predominantly because people don't necessarily want to just understand your smartness, your ability to solve problems. They want to understand how you solve it. They want to understand how you deal with other people. They want to understand how caring you are. And they want to understand how you stay calm during stressful situations. So these are the two factors that need to come out in your profile when you're building a profile. So how do we go about it? So in your CV or resume, try to first of all restrict it to one page. Because when you restrict it to one page, the person who's reading your CV understands that you've put a lot of effort and you made it concise and you made it very relevant. The person also understands that you respect that person's time and you're not just listing down everything that you've done right from your birth till now. You're only listing the important points. So you may not be able to restrict in one page. It's okay. You can extend it to second page, but do not make it 3, 4, or 5 pages. That's not something that recruiters are looking at from a CV. More importantly, talk about the impact of your work rather than describing the work itself. For instance, if you see my CV, during my education, I had the opportunity to work in the National University of Singapore, where I worked on a zero energy building. Basically, I worked in designing the building in a way where the building was energy efficient. Neither did the building take any energy, nor did the building give out energy. It generated its own electricity requirements by itself. So I worked on it. Rather than just saying that I worked on zero energy building in NUS Singapore, I have to state that we managed to create world's first zero energy building that led to a guide or a manual through which newer such buildings are being created across the world. Talk about the impact of your work rather than describing the work itself, because people are looking at what is the result that came out of it, what is the impact you created. Show that you are passionate in your CV. You can probably show this by showing your interest in, say, music or sports or leadership. I want to tell you a story here. So when my boss hired two more people into our team in total environment, he had gone to recruit from one of the engineering institutes called BITS Pilani. So when he went there and when he hired people, both these people, their CGPAs was less than 7. uh, you know you may ask, okay, how did he neglect the CGPA 8s and the CGPA 9s and he hired somebody who had a grade point average of 6 on 10? Interestingly, these people were able to show my head that they are passionate. One person was a football player, and you could wake him up from deep sleep, and he would exactly tell you the answer for a very complex football question that you could ever ask. So that's the level of passion that he had for football. So my boss hired him saying, if this guy is so passionate about football, if I'm able to inculcate similar passion for him in total environment, I'm sure he's going to be a big performer for my company. So people look at passion, people look at your interest in a very specific field. You shouldn't and you needn't write a lot of fields. You can just say music and you can say how deep you've gone in music, for example. Show that you care. Talk about your social work. Show that you volunteered. Talk about your teamwork. So usually, in an interview, your interviewer is going to ask you, give us an example of teamwork. It becomes really important for you to then have done projects just outside of your study environment, where you've come together as a team, you've built something, or you've designed something, or you've gone and helped a community. So get together, do a teamwork, let there be a great story, show that you care, show that you want to learn. you know uh, Especially during this pandemic, I understand you've been at home for about 3 to 4 months now. You could have easily taken courses online. You could have done great courses. You could have followed professors online, understood their research work, probably written an email to those professors saying, sir, if there is an opportunity to remotely work with you, can I work with you? Can I do some research for you in civil engineering, in design, in environmental engineering? Show that you want to learn softwares, pick up a new software that is relevant for your industry. Revit is becoming the norm today. We are moving out away from AutoCAD as much as possible. So pick up Revit, learn courses outside, and build a story around your profile. If it is just points, if you just listed items, then probably people don't get very excited. When you're communicating your CV or resume, build a story around your profile, where you're coming from, why it matters a lot, how you've been passionate, and how you care about environment, how you care about people. So when you build a story, a lot more people enjoy your profile. You have a better possibility of getting recruited for the company. These are some of the common questions asked in interviews. Tell us about yourself outside of work. Tell us about your strengths and weaknesses. Tell us one success story and one failure story of yours. Tell us one instance where you have led a team. Tell us one instance where you've worked in a team. Tell us about one challenge you've overcome in life and you've succeeded. How are you different or unique from others? See, there will be regular questions on tech. They are going to ask core questions, and I'm very confident that in the last 4 years, you've built a good repertoire of answers for those tech questions. But over and above the tech questions, if you want to stand unique and if you want to be considered for a role, then think about these questions. Do you have answers for these questions? If not, then this is a good time. You're free right now. You're locked down at home. Probably you can build answers for at least 2 or 3 of these questions. Think about this. Finally, ask questions. Always ask questions. Whatever you're learning, whoever you're working with, whoever you're following, ask questions. Don't stop with the first why. Ask the second why. Ask the third why. Because until you ask 3 whys, I don't think you'll get the right answer. Ask these 3 whys to yourself as well. Why am I in civil engineering? You will find an answer. Why am I doing this specific thing within civil engineering? You'll probably find another answer. Why am I continuing in this career in civil engineering? Probably you'll start thinking, okay, this is right, this is wrong. So it's very important to constantly keep asking questions to other people as well as yourself. Seek original work. You're all starting right now, you're venturing into careers. Begin with good work, begin with original work. Don't adjust to copying, don't adjust to doing very substantial don't adjust to doing very basic level of work. Question the work, try to do better work, seek quality work. Even if you guys are building a home, becoming a contractor, promise yourself that your quality of work, either for the government or for your customer, is going to be the best ever. Seek quality work and settle for nothing else. If in the first 8 to 10 years you stick to this principle of asking questions and finding answers, of doing original work, and of seeking quality work, then I think the next 25, 30 years, you don't have to worry a lot. You're going to continue doing great work. Infrastructure and buildings are the primary indicators of prosperity. Infrastructure and buildings are essential for human existence. If there is one field that shall remain permanent and continue to grow, that is the field of civil engineering. So do not worry about the COVID situation. Do not worry about the current economic crisis. Infrastructure and buildings are always a necessity. So if there is one field that will see an upturn and an immediate upturn, that is going to be the field of civil engineering. Stay positive. Thank you all. I'm open to questions. I don't know how much more time I have. If we don't have a lot of time, I'm open to getting the list of questions on an email. I'll respond to each of these questions separately.
Thank you, sir, for your for motivating the participants with various career paths in civil engineering. We have few questions here.
Okay.
Sir, can you explain the importance of artificial intelligence in civil engineering?
Yes. So it's a very broad field, to be honest. But if you look at the practice of civil engineering, let's take home building for example. If you look at home building, then it's a very repetitive work, right? You have to build your columns and beams. You have to build your walls. You have to lay your flooring. After a point, it is repetitive. So you can build the intelligence into a system, into a robot, and expect the robot to continue doing that quality of work for you. When you look at larger development, right? When you look at very huge infrastructural development, say road building, for instance, don't you think if you constantly build artificial intelligence into these systems, they will be able to do better quality work for you? So that is the importance of artificial intelligence in civil engineering. In doing repetitive works and doing these works in better and better quality over time.
Opportunities for civil engineering graduates in military, air force, and navy.
Absolutely. So that is one point that I missed talking about. There are multiple opportunities for civil engineers, especially in the army wing, because army has an engineering division, and the engineering division focuses on multiple things like infrastructure building, development of housing for defense personnel, development of the border villages and the border communities. So most of the construction that happens on all our borders are led by defense and not by PWD. So there is a huge division of civil engineering responsibilities within the defense sector for India. Yes. Any other questions?
Which type of internships are worth to flow in the path of environmental design?
Okay. So if within environmental design, if you're looking at health, sanitation, and things like that, then probably you should first take up research because a lot more development is happening in research rather than in field internships. So probably that will help you more. And I think somebody pointed out saying there is a larger scope for environmental design abroad than India. That is true, to an extent. That is true because a lot more research is happening over there, and a lot more focus is on uh, these elements of design like sustainability, conservation, and things like water conservation and things like that. So those are the internships that you need to seek towards research, probably working for professors abroad. Uh, Even IAC is doing some great work in this field, so you can look at that as well.
Friend, we would like to end up here. I
Okay.
request Mr. Sachin to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning to one and all. Respected speaker of the webinar, Mr. Nithish Bhat, AGM Business Development Total Environment Building System, Bengaluru, our beloved HOD, my dear colleagues, and all the participants. I am very happy to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. First and foremost, I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Mr. Nithish Bhat, for the wonderful guidance for the students as well as for civil engineers for what exactly the career path in this difficult situation. Once again, on behalf of entire STDC family, thank you, sir. I thank our director, assistant director, principal, head of the department, and convener for the wholehearted support for the success of this webinar. Thank you, one and all. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants. Without you, we cannot imagine this webinar, and also each one and all who helped to make this webinar a grand success. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you to the management of St. Joseph's. Thank you to HOD sir, and thank you to Pranamya and all the staff at SJC. Thank you very much once again. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. We would like to end this webinar session here.